Not all those who wander are lost. You've heard it before, haven't you? A beautifully crafted sentence from The Lord of the Rings by Tolkien, part of a poem about Aragorn, a man born to be king but raised in exile. He knows exactly who he is, but instead of claiming the throne, he chooses to live in the shadows. He spends years as a ranger, protecting people who don't even know his name. He fights in wars under identities that aren't his own. He moves through the world as an outsider, not because he's lost, but because he knows he isn't ready to take the throne. Because Aragorn's journey was never about finding himself at all, it was all about proving himself. He has always known the throne is his, but he doesn't take it. And instead, he waits, he fights, he proves again and again that he's worthy of it. And when the time finally comes, he doesn't hesitate. He steps forward and takes what was always his, stepping into the role that was always meant for him. And maybe that's why this quote sticks with us. Because Aragorn wasn't lost. He was waiting for the right moment, for the right version of himself. He wasn't wandering without purpose. He was walking towards something, even if he couldn't see it yet. So based on this story, what if feeling lost doesn't mean we've strayed too far? What if it just means we're still shaping ourselves, so that when we finally get there, we're the version of ourselves who truly deserves it? Looking back at those years in my 20s, I thought feeling lost meant I was failing. I thought I was lost in life in the most literal way possible, like I had taken a wrong turn somewhere, like I had wandered too far off course and couldn't find my way back. But now I think that maybe feeling lost isn't really a mistake. Maybe it's just what happens when we finally start paying attention to every little detail in our lives. And maybe that's the strangest part of it all. The moment we start questioning everything, we begin to see the distance between us and the life we thought we were supposed to have. We begin to see the distance between us and everyone who seems to know exactly where they're going. It feels like the world is moving forward without us, like everyone else has something pulling them toward the life they're meant to have, while we're stuck, trying to hold on to things that don't quite fit. It's funny how we don't notice it at first, how we wake up one day and realize we've been running on autopilot every day. We do the everyday things like school, work, maintaining friendships, and most of all, the small talk that fills the space between. It's all fine. It's all manageable. Yet something about it feels like watching life through a window instead of living inside it. Like we've been waiting for something to begin, but we don't know what. Some people call it a quarter-life crisis. Others say it's just part of growing up. And maybe they're right. Maybe this is just what happens when we start seeing life for what it is, messy and unpredictable, never as cinematic as we imagined, or at least as we hoped it would be. But that doesn't make it any easier to go through. Because the hardest part isn't just feeling lost itself, it's not knowing if there's even anything to find. Or worse, knowing that every choice we make is shaping something, even when we have no idea where it's leading. Jean-Paul Sartre once wrote, "We are our choices." At first that sounds empowering, but when you don't even know what you're choosing between, what does it actually mean? And what if every path looks the same, or worse, what if none of them feel like ours? We can feel this silent pressure to have everything figured out, to have a plan, a dream, a timeline, and most of all, a purpose. But most of us are just guessing, hoping we're not making irreversible mistakes. The world tells us to chase success, but no one really defines what that actually means. And when they do, each definition seems different. Is it wealth? Is it passion? Is it stability? And what if none of them feel right, at least not in the way they're presented to us? And thinking about it only leads us into endless scrolling, and for a while, it's all just background noise. It's all harmless, until we see things that make us second-guess everything. We see someone our age who just bought their first home. Another one just turned a side hobby into a six-figure business. Someone else is in Monaco, arms outstretched on a balcony, captioning it with something about how beautiful life is when you take risks. And suddenly, our own life feels smaller, a lot smaller than it actually is. We try to brush it off, try to convince ourselves that we're on our own timeline, that it doesn't matter. But then it silently pulls at something in the back of our mind. What if we're wasting time? What if we're falling behind in a race we never agreed to run? And then we get stuck between wanting to have something meaningful and not knowing where to start. Maybe that's why this feeling is so strong, because deep down, We don't just want direction. We want reassurance that we're not wasting our time, that we're not falling behind in a race we never agreed to run. And isn't it strange how when people see potential in us, they treat it like an obligation, like we owe the world success just because we have the ability to achieve something? It's as if the moment we show potential, there's a silent expectation that we must live up to it. And if we take too long to figure things out, or choose a different path, or things worked out not the way we expected, people act like we've wasted our potential, even if we're just trying to find what truly makes us happy. Maybe that's why so many of us feel lost. Every path we choose comes with some kind of pressure. Every choice feels like a test we never got to study for. The weight of expectation turns simple decisions into something heavy, where we should pick a direction quickly, stick to it, and we're not allowed to fall behind, as if life is a straight road, not a mess of wrong turns and second guesses. And at some point, we stop measuring life by what feels right and start measuring it by what we should be doing, by milestones we didn't set, by timelines that don't fit, and when we don't meet them, the silence is loud. No one says it outright, of course, but we can feel it in the way people ask. We can feel it in the way people's faces light up when someone talks about a promotion, but softens when we say we're still figuring things out. We can feel it in how success gets a room full of congratulations, while uncertainty gets a polite nod and a quick subject change, like standing still is something to be ashamed of. But what if standing still is the only way to hear ourselves think? What if being lost isn't really a failure, but rather a pause, a chance to step back, recalibrate, and ask, is this even what I want? Because apparently, our brains are wired to seek certainty, and the mind hates uncertainty. It treats it like a problem, something that needs to be solved immediately. Psychologists call it cognitive closure. It's the need for clear answers and resolution. It's how our brain craving for clear answers. When we don't have them, the amygdala, the part of the brain that processes fear, becomes more active than it normally does. And because of this, stress hormones rise, and the body prepares for a threat that isn't really there. That's why feeling lost doesn't just feel uncomfortable, it feels wrong, like something is broken, even when nothing is. But in many cases, true growth only thrives in uncertainty. Neuroscientists who studied about neuroplasticity have found that stepping outside familiar patterns stimulates the brain to form new neural pathways, which then strengthening our ability to adapt and learn. When we struggle to make sense of something, our minds actually become more adaptable, more capable. Dr. Robert Bjork calls this desirable difficulty, the idea that struggling with something, rather than immediately grasping it, forces the brain to retain and apply knowledge better. It's why uncertainty isn't just discomfort, it's part of how we learn. And yet, we're always told to avoid it. Society treats confusion like a failure, not a phase. Schools teach us to memorize answers, not sit with questions. No one celebrates doubt, even though it's the birthplace of understanding. We're taught that clarity is proof we're on the right path, but what if that's not true at all? What if not knowing is actually the very thing that shapes us? Because if we look back, the moments that changed us, the ones that actually built who we are, weren't the ones where everything was certain. They were the moments where nothing made sense, where we had no choice but to move forward blindly. Maybe that's not failure at all. Maybe that's how we're supposed to grow, and maybe feeling lost isn't really the problem. Maybe the problem is that we expect to never feel this way. But the brain wasn't programmed for a straight line at all. It was programmed for exploration, for trial and error, for wandering. And if science tells us that uncertainty is where we grow, maybe being lost is exactly where we need to be. The brain doesn't crave certainty as much as it craves adaptation. Uncertainty forces it to build new connections, sharpen problem-solving skills, and strengthen the pathways that help us navigate complexity. Studies on neuroplasticity show that stepping into the unknown doesn't just change our perspective, it physically rewires the brain and expands the way we think. So maybe feeling lost isn't proof that we've failed, maybe it's just proof that we're still learning. And in my book, that's a good thing. But many of us keep waiting for clarity, hoping the fog will lift and the path will appear. But what if the mistake isn't feeling lost at all? What if the mistake is believing that we need a perfect map before we can move forward? Maybe that's why decisions feel heavier than they should, why we hesitate, why we play out every possible outcome in our heads, and then convince ourselves that one wrong move will ruin everything. And apparently, there's a name for this. It's called the illusion of the right choice, or in scientific terms, maximization tendency. It's the belief that somewhere out there, there's a single correct decision, and if we don't find it, we'll ruin everything. And because of it, we tend to hesitate and overthink, which then makes us wait forever, while hoping clarity will come before we make a move. We like to think that if we analyze every possibility, we'll find the perfect answer. But research by Barry Schwartz shows that the more choices we have, the harder it is to choose at all. It gets us stuck in our own heads, running through the same scenarios over and over, convincing ourselves that one wrong move could throw everything off course. But then the waiting stretches too long. We replay conversations, rethink decisions, obsess over paths not taken, until we've spent more time analyzing life than actually living it, and the longer we wait for the perfect choice, the harder it becomes to make any choice at all. Dr. Daniel Woolpert, a neuroscientist who studies movement and cognition, argues that the brain wasn't built for sitting around, endlessly weighing options, it was built for action. We don't figure things out by standing still, by playing out 100 different scenarios in our heads. We figure things out by trying, by moving, by messing up and adjusting as we go. And with every decision, good or bad, the brain rewires itself, making it easier to go through uncertainty the next time. And this is usually the part where someone would tell you to just take action, to get up at 5 a.m, to optimize your habits, to hustle and grind, and manifest your dream life. But that's not what this is, because action doesn't always bring clarity. Sometimes movement just feels like movement. You can move and still feel lost. You can take a step forward and still have no idea where you're going. And maybe that's the hardest part, that even without clarity, we still have to move and still feel lost at the same time. And based on my personal experience in my messy 20s, that's completely okay, as long as you're still holding on to life and have the will to move towards something, even if that something is really abstract. Maybe that's what makes feeling lost so uncomfortable. We want direction, answers, and certainty, while the world doesn't always give us that. Albert Camus, a French philosopher who lived in the 20th century, believed we're wired to look for meaning, even when the universe refuses to give us answers. He called this the absurd, the contradiction between our need for meaning and an indifferent universe that offers none. Because at its core, the absurd isn't just about meaning, it's about contradiction. It's about the way we keep searching, hoping things will start making sense, only to realize that the deeper we go, the more we come face to face with the absurd itself. But Camus didn't believe that meant we should stop searching. If anything, he argued the opposite, that the lack of clear answers isn't a reason to stand still, it's a reason to keep going, because when there's no map, no fixed destination, we're left to create meaning in the way we live, in the things we choose to care about. So maybe that's the point. Maybe we don't move because we know where we're going. Maybe we move because stopping isn't an option. Because even in uncertainty, even in doubt, we are still alive. And as long as we are alive, we are still searching, even if we'll never be sure what we're hoping to find. We don't have to figure it all out in the beginning. We don't have to force an answer. Maybe we won't find certainty in a single moment, but in small things like conversations that make us think, in experiences that challenge what we thought we knew, or in choices that don't feel like much until we look back and realize they changed something. So, yeah, maybe we won't wake up tomorrow with a clear vision of where to go or what to do. Maybe the uncertainty won't disappear overnight. Even so, standing still isn't the only option. A single step can be enough to loosen the burden of uncertainty, to make room for something new to take shape. And maybe we don't need to force meaning onto every uncertainty. Maybe some things will always feel unfinished. There's a kind of beauty in that, knowing that not everything needs to be understood in order to matter. And maybe one day, we might look back at this version of ourselves and realize that even in the confusion, something was quietly taking shape. That the road didn't really disappear all along, it was just forming beneath our feet the whole time.